Hey friends, I'm Maxwell Freud, a pure Minneapolis-based game designer and host of Hatch This Way, a limited audio series where I chat with other queer folks in the tabletop industry to learn all about who they are and how they contribute to the hobby by being their authentic selves. Today, I'm super excited to be joined by Isaac Vega from Gauntlet Entertainment. Isaac, how are you doing?
I'm doing very well, Maxwell. Thank you for having me.
What is your official title over at Gauntlet?
So I am the CEO, one of the owners. I'm a co-owner with Lindsay Road. She's the COO of the company. And it's really just us two. So those titles, they can mean whatever you want them to mean.
Those are very fancy titles.
Yes, but it also just means we handle everything that exists at Gauntlet.
Yeah, absolutely. Other important titles is, how do you identify?
I identify as gay, he, him, and as a Dominican Latino man.
Yeah, let's dig into that. So, do you want to talk to me a little bit about the intersection of being a gay man in the Latinx communities?
That one's intense, at least for me personally. So I'm the oldest son in a Latino family. My mother is Dominican, born in the Dominican Republic. So is I. And my father is of Mexican descent. He was born in the United States, in Texas. And there are very specific expectations from both of those cultures for the first male born child. And a lot of those traditional expectations were definitely put on me. And being gay was certainly a huge complication in those expectations for my parents. We had a religious background growing up, so it was definitely something that was my own turmoil, just understanding the way that I was raised and understanding just the world that my parents wanted me to live in, felt about the feelings that I was experiencing when I was growing up. And that, of course, caused a lot of tension in between us. My parents found out that I was gay when I was 15 against my will. They read a letter a boy sent me. So that's how it all started. And that was not a fun experience. But I did have a good relationship with my father. He unfortunately passed away. And I have a good relationship with my mother. Something that I think being Latino and being gay, that I think a lot of Latino gay people go through, is that even if your family is not supportive in the beginning, we still pursue family because the family dynamic and keeping the family together is very ingrained in our culture. And we can't push away from that. And it's almost like breaking something inside of you to push away from your family. So even though it was a difficult experience, we worked it out and we got to a place that I'm very happy with now. It's not perfect by any means, but it is in a place that we have a lot of love for each other. And that never left. No matter what level we were at, the love and the bond there was still there. And I know that in their own way, they were just trying to do everything they possibly could to protect me, even though that wasn't what it felt like in the moment. Immigrant communities that come into the United States in different fashions and different ways have a lot of very similar expectations of their children, because they come here because they're seeking a better life, because the life that they left was not ideal and had a lot of struggles. So they want to make sure that not only are they sacrificing a lot to give their children everything they possibly can and didn't have growing up, they also want to make sure that they succeed and they thrive and they're not putting themselves in additional danger. And when you're an immigrant coming into the United States, you're already feeling like you're in danger. So just based on the color of your skin, just based on your cultural backgrounds, you can feel like you're already targets. And adding something else on top that makes you an additional target is incredibly scary for parents. And I can see that now, especially because there are so many ways in which my race and being gay intersect, and then there's so many ways in which they don't. But like the way that there's threats within both communities, that being piled on top of each other is scary for anyone. And they also just didn't have as much experience with it. They just didn't know what that lifestyle or what that life is like. And that was a big education for not only immigrants and my parents and their generation, it's just the entire country and their time period just didn't really have a good understanding of what being a gay person was. And that was given to our culture a lot better through the hard work of a lot of LGBTQ activists and people in entertainment and people in media that are able to put things out there and give people an understanding and a glimpse of what that world is like and who these people are. And you can start seeing the commonalities and the connection that you have in all of that. Even podcasts like this do a good job of being able to connect with people and give people an understanding and an insight into the background of people's lives.
No, for sure. I also think, regardless of culture, I've noticed that I think with every generation, it's, oh, when I have kids, I'm going to do it differently. And then I find that when they have the child and you're like, oh my God, I did it. Now I have a human being. You suddenly panic. And I think people fall back into what they were taught and how they were raised. And suddenly you become your parents without really meaning to be.
I think that one of the biggest turning points in my relationship with my parents was definitely when I decided to say, here is my line. Here is my boundaries. And here is what is comfortable for me. And if you cross that, that's going to affect our relationship. And that helped a lot, especially with me being gay. And when I was starting to live my lifestyle more out loud, they had a lot of things to say about that, of course. And that was a struggle between us. But as soon as I started understanding I'm okay stepping away from this if it is going to continuously hurt me. But if you do respect my boundaries and you do respect my lines, we can have a good relationship. And luckily, that was a good turning point for us in the relationship. It could have completely gone in the other direction. But sometimes you just have to stand your ground. And I totally get that. If you need the space away from your family and your parents, take it, because sometimes it might be the best way in which your relationship can improve.
So talk to me about coming into your own and learning to embrace that part of yourself. What was that process like?
It was quite the roller coaster, to be completely honest. My coming out story is not a simple one and done kind of experience. When I was in early high school, I discovered that being gay was who I was around 15 years old. I had an experience where I was at a summer camp kind of thing. And then, oh, I'm finally on my own and first time away from my house. And now like, oh, I like boys. That's interesting. And thinking about that and talking about that and telling other people about that for the first time. And that was my experience during my high school years, where I told very close friends. I knew that's who I was, but I didn't really act on too much of it. I had some experiences, but not a lot. And then I was like, I need to do everything I possibly can to leave my house. I grew up in the northwest section of Ohio, in a very rural town, village, actually, not even a town. And I needed to leave that space, I felt, because it wasn't so much that I was feeling a lot of threats or interrogation or a lot of people treating me poorly. I was actually middle ground in high school. I wasn't like offending too many people and I was friendly with everybody. And nobody was like trying to pick on me or bully me or things like that, which was lucky. But I think it was mostly because we were in a very small town and I had known all of these people since kindergarten.
Exactly the same.
Yeah, so it's just like, that was, we all knew each other and all knew everybody's background and things like that. But my home life was getting a little bit more feeling of restraint, and I really wanted to leave that situation. I knew I wanted to get into game design. I just didn't know that it would end up being tabletop games.
That's a common theme. That's probably one of the most common themes on this podcast is everyone's like, I went for game design, not for board games. And here we are.
So I went in 2005, there wasn't really that many schools that specialized in video game design. And there was one school in Arizona that I decided to go to. So I just left everything in Ohio and went to this very expensive, stupidly small, weird private school that I spent way too much money on and did not finish in Arizona just to get away from that life. But a strange things happened as soon as I left. I was too scared to come out again. I ended up kind of meeting groups of people there, and the people that I wanted to be around, nobody was gay. Nobody knew anybody that was gay. Everybody was just cool and I liked them, but I just didn't know how to tell them that part of myself. I wasn't comfortable. And that kind of forced me back in the closet in a way. And I don't know if it was just me being alone for the first time in my life for a long period and having to rely on myself. I had to work multiple jobs even just to get through college and still had lots of debt. And I didn't finish college. It was a very crazy time, and I started getting more and more involved in religion, which was like a little bit of my background. My parents had always been kind of church hoppers. It wasn't really something that they like stuck to a specific type of Christianity. It was just lots of different types of Christianity that they go to different things. And I met someone who I was developing feelings for that was also very religious, and started interacting with them in their friend groups and got even more so religious. And then they found out I was gay. I was kicked out of that church, and then got a lot of one-on-one therapy kind of sessions. So it wasn't like full blown gay therapy or what, I forget exactly what the term is called.
Like conversion.
Conversion therapy. Yes, that's what it is. It wasn't full blown that, but it was something similar. And I really tried at that point in my life to just live as a straight person because I hated myself. And that went on for about 4 years. So I lived in Arizona for about 3 years and then moved back to Ohio after I felt that I wasn't really happy. I was very unhappy with religion and the people that I was around down there. It just all fell apart, and came back home and still thought I was going to be a religious person. But once I got back home, I started letting myself be myself again. And I realized that no, being a gay is part of who I am. And I can't take that out of my life because it would destroy my life. And I decided to start once again coming out and letting people know who I was. And it was my second coming out in a way, which was a far easier experience. But it was sad that I had to go through all of that all over again.
Oh, for sure. Are you still religious at all?
No, God, no. Religion, don't suggest it. I understand why people turn to it. I have a lot of sympathy. My mom is still religious. My sister is still religious. I understand why they need it in their lives. I understand the comfort that it can give people. But I feel that a lot of people that are involved in it turn a blind eye to all of the things that they're doing to destroy other people's lives. And that certainly hurt me, and I could never get involved with it again like that. I don't have a anger towards the people because the people I've understood, I was involved in it. I understood how things can happen, how you want to turn towards some sort of higher power in order to answer all those questions inside of you. But the institution, like so many things in our country and in our culture, I feel is a huge problem and can hurt a lot of people in its wake. So yeah, I'm not religious by any means. I don't have any sort of religious practice. When I stepped away from religion, my entire mantra was that I'm going to try to live the best life that I can and be a good person. And if there's any sort of judgment at the end of it, I don't care. Like I did everything I thought I was supposed to do, and I felt good about it in the moment. So I really don't care. And that's about as far as I go down the religious track.
No, I'm very similar. I grew up very religious. It was a big part of my friend group growing up. And then once I got to college, I was like, oh, I realized how deep I'd pushed myself in the closet to just survive in that scenario. It's interesting. A couple of those friends went the other way, and now I think they're still religious, but very progressive. And then some just stayed, like they kept sharing out this homophobic stuff. And I was like, yeah, these were the people I was hanging out with. So similar journey for me is I personally found that I was much happier just living my life. And I didn't need the whole thing, honestly, for me felt very performative. And maybe it's because the whole time I knew I had this part of me that I was hiding. Whenever it was brought up in sermons and whatever, there was always this part of me that says, I don't actually believe this because I know this part of myself exists. So that was always there for me. So I don't think I ever authentically connected with it. So having that taken off me was a huge burden where I didn't feel guilty. Yeah, it's just very freeing to let that part go so that I could live authentically. And yeah, I'm the same with you. Like if I can just be happy in life, I'll take it. Like I've loved it. And I understand also, I have a lot of friends who are religious. I have a friend who's a pastor at a church, gay pastor. Yeah. So I get it. It works for people. Some people find a lot of comfort, solace in it. It's not for me, and that's okay. I think religion works really well as a personal journey for people to find their place in the world. That's great. I think I agree with you. It becomes an issue when part of your religion is everyone else needs to believe that same thing, or they're going to hell, or they're less worthy, or they're less than me. That's where the issues come in. It becomes interpersonal and not just how you treat people, but how you think people should act and what they should believe. That's where religion breaks down for me. That becomes a no. Yeah. Like, live your journey, live your life. And that's all it has to be, I think. So,
yeah. If only people could follow that.
Yeah. Yeah. And that brings us to today. Welcome to our current struggles and battles and the ongoing ones that have always been going on.
Yeah.
Fun. Love where this is going. I mean, that's where all these have gone recently, is you cannot talk about it. I think that's one of the themes of this podcast is I want to talk about things that don't normally get brought up in our spaces.
Right.
As in the tabletop hobby, maybe more so in the TTRPG spaces. I think they're a little more open because you're telling stories and creating personas, and lends itself to those kind of conversations a little bit easier than we're sitting down to a game that's abstracted. It's a board game. It's a curated experience. We don't need to bring our personal lives into this experience. Like if you're at a convention or you're sitting down with friends, like you're here to learn a puzzle and play the puzzle together and figure out who played it better, in short. Yeah. I think I just noticed that I wanted those conversations to happen, though, because I feel like they needed to happen, and we need to make space for them, and let's not make things political and just have a good time, because we're not all having a good time when we can't have our entire selves celebrated.
Yeah, and tabletop within itself is a community. Communities need to be able to have those kinds of conversations in order for the communities to stay healthy, I think, and keep bringing people in and making sure that people are welcome. One of the things that I found so much solace in the tabletop community was a sense of community, because I felt so broken after the religious experience and feeling like I lost so many people in that process after leaving, because I didn't know how to connect after trying to be myself and trying to be who I was. And I didn't know how to achieve that sense of community again, because that was the thing about religion that it was really good for me. I liked having friends, and I liked having a big set of community and a feeling of being welcome in so many people's homes. And I was able to find very similar and better experiences within the tabletop community. And that opened my eyes to what this specific industry and this specific hobby can do for people, because of the fact that it is face to face, it is around a table. You can't really avoid the fact that you need people that much. There's plenty of solo games, but it's so centered around the fact that you need to connect with another person in order to enjoy this experience. And that is a unique way of entertainment that isn't really shared in a lot of other ways of entertainment that brings people together. And our community having good discussions about how we treat people and how we come around that table is hopefully going to help make that better and make that more inclusive to many other people that are interested in the industry.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I think we are definitely a minority, period. And then anytime you get into a niche space like tabletop gaming, we become even more of a minority. And to, I think, lessen the gap, or to make it feel like we're less of just a group of 10 in a sea of thousands, is just to make space. So I think we're getting there. I think, and maybe it's just me becoming more aware of more queer people and like seeing the connections being made. The more those connections get made, I think that's how you 3D print your safe space.
Yeah, and I definitely came into this community not necessarily seeking a gay angle. I was seeking a career. I was seeking a way to step outside of, again, being stuck in Northwest Ohio, and seeking something that could give me an opportunity to travel and be creative, which I absolutely loved doing. And it wasn't until about halfway into my career that I really started noticing other LGBTQ people starting to enter the space, because for a long time I felt like I was always the only one. And seeing that gave me a lot of hope, and I wanted to reach out, and I started making friends that were in the LGBT community that were interested in tabletop, and started bringing things together. And now this past year, we had a big gay dinner, which I'd been hosting for the last 3 years. And it was the biggest one yet. And it's so cool to see the amount of people that have started to come into the industry. And I can't wait to have another one and see how much that grows. Because there's a lot of us out there and we're all getting to know each other and we're all getting to come together. And it's been beautiful to get to know everyone.
Absolutely. Before we switch like full on into game talk,
Mm-hmm.
talk to me a little bit about where you're at now and what your personal life is like in terms of, have you found that support that you find that helps you live your best life?
I believe I have. My friends, both straight and gay, have been incredibly supportive of my life. I've had a partner for the last 6 years, which has also opened me up more to the gay community as a whole, because I never really got that kind of gay experience of having that early set of community because of how much stuff I went through in college and things like that. I didn't really connect with the traditional or the Hollywood-fied LGBTQ community. And it wasn't until later in life through the tabletop community that I started really connecting with more LGBTQ people. And obviously in dating as well. With that, my friend group has grown, my support group has grown. I'm still learning a lot of things, to be completely honest. I've been with my first boyfriend for the last 6 years, so I don't really know a whole bunch of different things. So I'm still always learning. I'm still always understanding what it is to be a part of the LGBTQ community. And I think it's always going to be a different experience for every single person. There isn't a perfect script for being a gay person in this world, just like there isn't for anything else. It's certainly been wonderful to be able to have the connections and the friends that I've gotten over the last few years through being more of my authentic self and being more open about who I am, and seeing a lot of connection and shared experiences there has been wonderful and such a huge blessing in my life. I feel like I am at the best point of my life that I've ever been, especially on that front. So I couldn't be happier on how that's going. And I'm sure there's plenty of room to grow, but I'm still on that path in that direction. And I'm very excited about what the future has in store for me.
Awesome. Let's shift into games because they're fun.
Yes.
Megan. Have you played a few board games in your life?
Oh, yes, quite a few. Quite a few. So much so that multiple walls in my house are taken up by them.
Wow, that seems like a very unique problem to have. I'm sure nobody listening has multiple walls of games in their home.
It's funny how quick that collection can grow.
Yeah, it's so interesting. How did you know you wanted to get into game design? Do you remember where that spark came from?
Yeah, so I had reconnected with some of my high school friends when I came back from dropping out of college, and they had always been into card games. They played Dragon Ball Z when I was like in middle school, and Raw Deal and Magic the Gathering and things like that. And I had participated in some of that, but never to the intensity that they were involved, because I just didn't have the access to funds that they did. But when I came back, they had all transitioned into board games, and they had been buying games like Dominion in Puerto Rico and All-Star Galactica and things like that. And it's like, what is all this? I didn't even know this world existed. I didn't know that there was board games outside of Monopoly and Sorry. And all of these different interesting mechanics and all of these different games that they were introducing me, and they were talking to me about conventions and different companies that were being built up and different people that had started new companies. And I was like, what is this world? This is so interesting. I had no idea that people could make a living off of this. And pretty much 6 months into even finding out what board games were in that capacity, I had designed and signed my first game just because I'm a creative person. I've done photography and I've done different things throughout my life that have just been like, I want to be creative. So as soon as I saw this is accessible, this is paper and cardboard, I can put that together, I will do it. And let's see if I can go ahead and make it. And I had some skills with Photoshop and Adobe programs as well by that point. And I was just like, I'm going to put stuff together and make it happen and see what happens. And I presented one of my games that I was working on to the owner of Plaid Hat Games, and he was very encouraging. Didn't like the game. I find out later. Very encouraging. But then we started developing a relationship early on as well. And then I pitched him another project, and he was like, take that other game and put it to the side and work on that. And when I put that together, he thought it was great. And that's pretty much where I'm like, this can become more than me just playing with paper and cardboard. This can become an actual job. And I kept going down that rabbit hole and never stopped since.
So timeline wise, this is like post college, right?
Yes, I was like
Yeah.
22, 23 when this started up.
Wild. So was that first one Ashes?
No, it was called City of Remnants. So that was my first game that I signed. Second one was BioShock, that really started solidifying me as like more of a designer. And then Dead of Winter came third. And then Ashes, number 4.
A couple games people may have heard of. No, wild. Were those all through Plaid Hat?
Yes, pretty much. I developed a really good relationship there. They were only located just 15 minutes away from my house. So Colby, the owner, also had a little game group that I attended in, and pretty much I volunteered and tried to participate in every opportunity that was made available to me. I didn't actually get paid in the industry for about 2-3 years until like my first game got signed. I started getting royalties, but I didn't actually have a job or a full-time job, or wasn't hired by Plaid Hat until about 3 years into volunteering and just being close to the company and signing games left and right. But yeah, they liked a lot of my stuff. They didn't like plenty of my other stuff. And I just decided to just pursue things that worked for that company instead of pursuing things that would have not worked for the company. So there's plenty of games that I still have in my closet that are unfinished, unsigned, that I designed during that time period that I'm like, this would have never worked for Plaid Hat, still wouldn't work for Plaid Hat, and that I just decided not to pursue with other companies at the time because I really enjoyed being part of the Plaid Hat team.
Cool. Just so I have it as a reference, what are some of your other titles that people may or may not be familiar with?
Yeah, so my most popular title and my most well-known is certainly Dead of Winter, and Ashes is still going strong as well. It just got a 1.5 re-release a couple of years back, and people have been really enjoying that and keeping that alive. That's been really awesome to see the community come around into building that back up and putting that together. Forgotten Waters was my last release with Plaid Hat. Also did pretty well and is still doing well. So that's fantastic to see that continue. BioShock Infinite certainly put my name on more people's radars because of the fact that it was such a famous IP that was coming to a small studio at the time, and being the sole that was my first design where I was the sole designer. It gave me a little bit higher profile. And then let's see, Neon Gods is a re-implementation of City Remnants and Starship Samurai that came out as well. But mostly the big three are Ashes, Forgotten Waters, and Dead of Winter. Those are the ones that I'm known for. We have Keystone, our first game through Rose Gauntlet, that's coming out right now, where I'm a co-designer on as well.
Awesome. So let's just jump into the fun personality quiz of what are games that you enjoy, that you play a lot, or ones you recommend.
My favorite game in the moment that I just recently learned how to play is probably Lost Ruins of Arnak. That game is stupendous. They did an absolutely amazing job with it and has so much theme coming through in its mechanics. And I just love that merger of deep mechanics with lots of different pathways to victory, with a very good and solid theme that really seems to come out of not only the art and the styling and the beauty of the game, but also through the mechanics and the actions that you're actually taking within the game. So I absolutely love that game. Another game I highly suggest and have enjoyed for quite some time is Wingspan, which so does everybody. That's always been something that I've just been obsessed with since it come out. Played it again not too long ago. And I really enjoy some of the lightweight Euros, Gazul, Century, things that have come out through Plan B games. So I enjoy those types of products. And I also am a big fan of, even though I don't play it nearly as often as I probably would like, but I don't know if I'll ever have the time to do Twilight Imperium, because Twilight Imperium just does an absolutely... I don't know any other game that has been redesigned 4 times and gotten to the point of this kind of really solid, slick machine, and does such an impeccable job of really oozing its theme as well and providing an experience that I don't think any other game has quite lived up to as of yet. So I think Twilight Imperium is certainly a very unique and interesting game. It's beautiful, but it doesn't get to the table nearly as much due to its length. But I do enjoy it when it does. And I wish I could have a better scope of the overall game experience, because there's a lot to unpack there and dive into with all the different races and strategies that exist within that game. I like games with a lot of fun, different strategy and paths to victory. And if there's a good merger of theme, I'm all about it.
Nice. Yeah, we have a work Twilight Imperium Day coming up here.
Nice.
So we blocked out the whole day, good 12-hour chunk. It's going to be a 6-player game, which is going to be wild.
Whoa.
I played it once before with 3 players, and it's like Risk on a lot of crack. Expansive. It has the area control troops of Risk, but it also has this like political council phase where there's some voting involved. Right. And then there's also a lot of interpersonal mechanics. If you get into the game, you're going to be like talking to other players about who goes where and does what and who you need to block from winning. Very intense game of Risk, basically.
It's a fantastic experience, but I totally understand why it's not for everyone. Certainly, games lose a lot of people sometimes if they go over 90 minutes, but I feel like sometimes playing it is almost a celebration of being a nerd.
It's not for everyone, but the people who it's for, it is very much for. So that's why I think it succeeds. It knows what it wants to be and who it's for. And people found it and they're like, I love that. And for us casual players who get to it once in a while, pretend that you're
exactly. Yeah, I'm certainly more in the casual camp of the fandom. It's just I already don't get to play board games enough, and so when I do, it's often shorter bursts. But it's always nice to schedule one Twilight Imperium session once every 1 or 2 years.
Yeah, I realized I've been super busy lately, and then just recently I reconnected with a couple of friends, and I'm getting more games in. But before, I think people would turn the question around and ask me like, oh, what do you like playing? What are your favorites? I'm like, I don't think I like games. Looking at how many I've played in the past, strictly going off numbers, I don't think I like them. Right. I think I just buy them and read the rule book and pretend I'm going to play them one day.
I'm always at least playing my own products. Yeah. Because I got to test it over and over again.
No, I had been doing that too with a couple games. I'm like, oh, I've just been working on that. And that sucks up your time.
Focus. That's all the gaming that you can do.
It turns into that at some point. So it's been nice to get back into the more casual, like saying no to things and then making time to just connect with friends and try out some new stuff. Yes. Realizing I'm learning where a lot of the trends I'm seeing are coming from. Like I played Wingspan for the first time somewhat recently, and I was like, oh, that's why I'm seeing this thing everywhere. All the dots connected now that I have a reference for it. But yeah, it's been fun. Working on making it more of a regular thing and saying no to other things because I do like games, it turns out. I just have to make a very concerted effort.
Struggle being an adult.
I don't like being an adult, that's for sure.
It's so much easier in my early adult years when none of my friends had anything to do.
No.
I played board games all the time.
We had game nights pretty regularly before everyone had kids. And now it's like, ugh, it's hard to find. My friends that I reconnect with don't have kids, turns out. And yeah, it's tough. People figure it out.
Yeah.
You talked about what you like and who you are. How does all of that matriculate down into the games that you make? Or the games you want to make even?
So when I started working with Plaid Hat, I made a lot of games that I was just, I'm a fan of this mechanic and this mechanic and this thing. How can I make all of those things come together and bring out this theme? City of Remnants was very much a amalgamation of everything I liked in that point of my life put together in a single game. BioShock is where I really started learning to start designing for a company and understanding what's the needs of business and the needs of a company actually needed, because we had to fill in certain specifications in order to meet the expectations of the BioShock IP owners. So I really started learning that. And then Dead of Winter was more like a amalgamation inspiration from working with John, my co-designer on that project. And The Walking Dead is very interesting. And I don't really like zombie games. But that's where I feel like I've started learning to design from things I don't like. I don't like this. Why does everybody else like this? And that was partially Battlestar Galactica. I didn't like Battlestar Galactica. I still am not a huge fan of the game. I like the IP. I watched the series and that was fun. But it was just too long and it wasn't something that I was really enjoying at the time. But I really wanted to understand why other people enjoyed it. and how I could then take the part that they enjoyed and then make it something that worked for me. And then I discovered that there's all these zombie games out there, but none of them are really giving that theme or that feeling of what it would be like to be stuck in the zombie apocalypse. And that feeling of not only are you scared of the zombies, which most of the games were trying to bring you at that time, but you're also dealing with the fact that you're stuck with all these people and you have to not only provide for them, but also, do you trust them? How are you going to build this community? And that's where Dead of Winter was born, and something that I really enjoyed putting together because of how many different things that we were exploring with that theme and that style of gameplay. Ashes was truly a ode to my youth and playing card games and making a game that was more accessible to someone like me who was 15, because I wasn't able to afford all the cards. I wasn't able to buy multiple packs just to get that one good card that I needed in my deck that my friend could just use over and over to destroy me, that I didn't have access to. So I really wanted to make a game that was like, here, you get everything. And there's a lot of deck building involved too. And you can have a lot of cool things. And there's these really cool characters that you're being represented by and you get to go ahead and fight with. And I really wanted to make a unique world. And I was super into Game of Thrones at the time. That was before the bad times of Game of Thrones. And I very much loved the deep wealth of history that series started off with. And I wanted to make a story around the game Ashes with that kind of history, some feeling of, here are all these heroes, they've already saved the world, but now something else has brought them at odds with each other, and now they have to fight against each other in order to be the one last true Phoenixborn. And that was a fun place to design from as well. I loved creating that world. I love creating those characters, and working with Fernanda Suarez, who is the artist on both Dead of Winter and Ashes, was an absolute honor because of how talented she was. So all of those things came together, and that was really fun for me. With Rose Gauntlet, we started off with, I'm very into, I mentioned Azul, I mentioned Wingspan, kind of these light to mid-weight Euros that are just like fun mechanical experiences that are still bringing a little bit of theme. And with Rose Gauntlet especially, we are making games that have a deep passion underneath them. Near my end of my plaid hat time was kind of part of the corporate grind, because at that point we had been purchased 3 times into bigger and bigger companies that were purchasing the parent companies. And it was then going back to that experience of designing for the company's needs instead of designing from a place of passion. And so I wanted to make sure that Rose Gauntlet was a company that really focused on everything that we make has a spark of passion. The person that's bringing together this project has something that they want to say in the world and something that's going to be of a positive input in the world. And when Jeff Joyce, my co-designer on Keystone, came to us with this project, he was so passionate about animal conservation, giving people an understanding of all the different animals that are currently endangered, that are essential for different ecosystems in order for them to survive. And that's where Keystone was born. And we loved that passion and seeing that come out of him. And we came together and brought that together because he infected us with his passion about it. And then we're working on another project right now that I'm super, super passionate about. We haven't revealed, so I can't talk about it completely. But again, we're trying to design from a point of immense passion. And it doesn't necessarily matter what the mechanics are around that. We want to make sure that we're making things that me and Lindsay especially can always kind of stretch our design skills and stretch into different forms and different ways of exploring what being a designer is. So it's never going to be something that's the same or has to stick in this category. It's more about what are we passionate about in the moment. And I've done that throughout most of my career. And I think it's worked out so far.
For sure. I understand that. My new strategy that I'm trying out for now is just finding people who are open to co-designing and then just bugging them until we have designed. But I love the process of co-designing. I love collaborating. I do it professionally every day. But I think there's something kind of magical when the thing in your head gets transported into someone else's head. And then in between, you find these magical moments of interest and connection. And then if you can capture those and put those into a thing, I think that's a really fun process.
Yeah.
It's a very abstract way of describing collaboration, but those intersecting points between you and someone else where you take what you love and enjoy and know and want to see, and then they do the same thing. And then you listen for the moments where they cross and then try and focus on those and put that into an experience. I'm interested in doing more of that. So I'm trying to find people who are willing to, because none of us have any time. So I'm just trying to finding the time to do that with me because I enjoy it. Whether or not the game gets made is irrelevant to me, but just that process of connecting with people and finding those moments, I think I really enjoy.
Yeah, Lindsay and I are working on this project right now called Life After Dungeon, which we did announce, and we have just been having an amazing time co-designing that project together. There has been so many ways in which we've constantly just been inspiring each other, and the game has gone through many different iterations since we announced it. It's just to try to make sure that that original intention is still correct in what we wanted to present into the world. But throughout that entire process, there's been so many amazing things that have come out of it. And I throw something at her and she throws it back at me even better. And then I throw it back at her even better. And it's just so much of that process has been so interesting. And I had a lot of the same experiences on Forgotten Waters with just really getting to know my coworkers at the time, Joe and Bistro, and having this fun amalgamation of these amazing pirate stories that we were putting together, and getting to know them better throughout the process was also such a wonderful joy. So I totally feel that. And I love that process. So I hope that you get many of those opportunities in the future with great people.
We're working on it. I think also specifically, and this could lead into my next question, is I'm specifically looking to work with other queer designers to make more queer specific, ostensively queer games, if that makes sense. So I guess to that end, is there anything about what you do or your mission? You mentioned organizing the big gay dinner. Is there anything that you keep close to your heart as part of your process to move the industry towards inclusion, aside from just being yourself and being out there and present and doing awesome stuff?
Yeah. Certainly being out there and being present is in itself a way of pushing against the norms and giving people an opportunity to learn more from you. But I'm also really passionate about just getting to know people and bringing people together and having them get to know each other and helping those friendships and cultivating those friendships within the community. And as a game designer that's been working in this industry for a while, I'm in the unique opportunity that I know so many people and I have access to a lot of people's emails and DMs, and they'll pay a little bit more attention because, the designer of Dead of Winter is reaching out to me. Maybe I'll go ahead and pay attention a little bit. And that access has given me the unique opportunity to be a little bit more of a person that can bring some people together within the industry in order to create these kind of events, such as a Big Gay Dinner. The Big Gay Dinner really started off just me and 3 other queer people within the industry that I just wanted to get to know better. And that started snowballing into more of that. I just want to get to know more of you, and I want to get to know more of you. And just seeing a little bit on the content creator side, especially, and on the designer side as well, just more people entering the industry that are part of the LGBTQ, and me not really having that much access to the LGBTQ community outside of just some of the people that I knew. That was personally just something that I just wanted to connect with and be a part of. And it's grown into something else. And I can't wait for it to even grow more this upcoming year. And then having seen and done that this past year, especially with how now I can do it as an industry head, right? Now, since I'm the CEO of a company, I can use my company in order to go ahead and make that more relevant and more present and forward part of what our company's mission is. I have the power to do that now. And because of that, we're taking steps in order to make sure that we're having these community-driven events. One of the things that we're doing this year, as well, is that we're actually hosting the BIPOC Lounge alongside with Gen Con at the Gen Con event here in the next few weeks. we're doing that because one of the things that I was struggling with, especially with the turmoil within our country, is how do I connect on the other side of who I am? Being a Dominican person and being a Mexican person in this country has been quite a whirlwind in the course of the last few years. And I know that our industry especially has a lot of growing up to do when it comes to race. And I wanted to at least provide some sort of space or some sort of way in which I could get that same community coming together that I was getting in the Big Gay Dinner. But one of the things that I noticed that's a little bit harder within the BIPOC community is that just access to gaming in general. And that's the same thing that I was talking about when I was first designing Ashes. I just didn't have the money when I wanted to play these card games. I didn't have access to that. My parents didn't have extra funds in order to play those types of games and give us that opportunity. One of the things that we hope to accomplish with the BIPOC Lounge is just giving people that are interested in stepping into the industry more access and more opportunities in order to learn about ways that they can be a part of that. I'm also part of a board of Game Pathways, which is also working on ways in order to have more BIPOC people come in through the industry by educating younger people, such as in college and high school, about the industry and letting them know about it early on as a possible career pathway. So we're taking steps as Rose Gauntlet. I'm taking steps as an individual to make sure that there are ways that we can foster that building of a community within the tabletop industry. I know that Lindsay is also passionate about doing that for women in the industry as well. So we're trying to see how we can explore all those different things. We're certainly not experts in that field at all, but we don't really see too many other people trying to make that a priority within their companies and something in the industry. And it's something that me and Lindsay are both incredibly passionate about, and making that space for people that are a little bit more marginalized, underrepresented within the tabletop space to have opportunities to come together, to learn from each other, and to find ways to advance themselves within the industry itself, because we are sorely behind in a lot of ways from other industries that have been established longer.
Absolutely. Yeah, I totally agree. I think underrepresented people aren't underrepresented for lack of existing or trying.
Mm-hmm.
It's really comes down to when you look at the opportunity.
Right.
It's the opportunity gap. It happens in schools. It happens in professional industries all the time. And I've talked about this before. I think it just comes down to, if you are a cishet white person in a position of power, are you giving underrepresented people and voices the same opportunities and resources that you're willing to give other white cishet people who are trying to break into the industry as well? Because I feel like I see a ton of underrepresented designers in these game design channels. I'm not seeing a ton of their games on shelves yet, specifically not through larger publishers. So you got to ask yourself, are you making an effort? And if you're not, then don't get mad when we try to make our own space in the industry.
Yeah. And this industry is very predicated on friendships and connection.
Oh, yeah.
And there are so many companies built up in our industry with that. It's just a group of friends that came together, and they're hiring their friends and they're putting that together. So if you don't have anybody in your space that is an underrepresented voice within that community, how are you going to be bringing them onto your teams? How are you going to be learning from them? And then it's also the added step where they come under your teams, but they're the only one. They're the only person that must be representing the entire spectrum of what it is to be outside of the norm of what most people in the industry are. And like one example that I always turn back to is when I was sitting as an executive. I was a VP of Plaid Hat Games and an executive at Asmodee as such for the studio. We went to a community building event for the executives on the team, and there were multiple different studios from different companies that were all under the Asmodee umbrella there. And I was, I believe, one of only 2 people of color sitting in the room. I am pretty sure I was the only LGBTQ person in that room. And that was a stark reminder. Here's all the heads of the largest company in the industry, and I am the only one here. And that certainly made me feel more alone in that situation. And when they're all getting together, talking about their wife and their kids and connecting over their shared experiences. And I don't fault them for any of that. That's wonderful. I'm glad that they have those things, and I'm glad that they can connect. on those things. But like when you don't have that same shared experience, it's harder sometimes to connect. So giving opportunities and spaces in which we can come together, connect, and understand and give each other tips in the industry, that is ways that we can go ahead and rise up in the industry as well and give ourselves opportunities to learn more and create more and just be members in this tabletop community that we all love and that we all want to be a part of. And it's just about creating that opportunity for people to be able to have those shared experiences because of the fact that this industry is so predicated on being friends. And it makes sense. We're all sitting around a table having a good time. That's what we want to do. That's what we're trying to give to our audience. So it would be weird if everybody was just very stern and this is just a job. And certainly there are some spaces and companies that are like that. But it is the rarity in our industry. Everybody, for the most part, has a really good time. And what I do love about this industry is how much support we give other companies and other professionals within the industry that in many other industries you'd see as your competition. But in this industry, you all understand the struggle and you all come together as one big family and one big community. And I have gotten so much wonderful advice and so much uplifting words of encouragement from other companies and other people that are directly competing with the products that I'm putting out there. But it's so nice to have that. And I would just want to give more opportunities to underrepresented voices in that space because it's a wonderful industry to be a part of. It really is.
Absolutely. And I think the only other part of that is knowing that there are people in the industry like you. You're not alone. And then knowing that your voice matters and carries weight. I think right now people tend to prioritize the cishet white man as the main demographic for what all their games will appeal to. And I think it's working. It's profitable now. And I think there's a whole other market that you're closing yourself off to if that's strictly who you bring on to design your games, who you market your games for, where you market your games, how you market your games, like your messaging, your wording. If that's what you have in mind, that's how it's going to manifest when you start putting things out into the world. So I hope I can, in some small part, try and convince people that if you make your creative and your team and your demographic more inclusive, it expands your gettable audience. It is more profitable long term. Even though we're a minority, it doesn't mean that we don't matter. We still have a right to be involved in your products and should be represented and should be considered as just as valuable as a straight white guy who wants to buy a game.
Right. And all that I feel that these efforts are there for is to allow people the opportunity to tell their stories and to be a part of the story. And so many people don't feel that way. And that can be really hard on your psyche and how you feel when you walk into a room, when you're part of a meeting or you're part of a group and you just don't feel like you're actually represented or that you matter in that moment. So I want to make sure that people feel like they matter, no matter what space they enter, that they matter and they're cared about and that they are important too.
Yeah. And including underrepresented people does not detract from the representation that's already there.
Exactly.
We're not taking away from the space that
we've only made more board games every year. It's only more. Don't worry.
Absolutely.
We can still make more.
We're not taking away room or voices from anyone. We're just making space for more. So, yeah, also a tricky concept to get across these days.
For sure.
Woof. We talked about so many things. I think my last question is there anything you're seeing right now in the industry in terms of inclusion that's giving you hope that we're moving in the right direction?
I have really been inspired by just the sheer amount of content creation coming from both the BIPOC community and the LGBTQ community. It's wonderful to see people talking about games, reviewing games, being excited about games that aren't just white people, because it shows that, yes, I belong here too. This isn't just a white person hobby. This isn't just a straight person hobby. Everybody can enjoy this hobby. And seeing content creators really putting themselves out there, being supportive of each other, being willing to put up with a lot of the hates and things that come their way just by existing. is really inspiring. And I am just so proud of them and so proud that they continue and are growing and thriving and exceeding, which has been absolutely fantastic to see. So I just want to continue seeing that. I want to see more people in the space be able to share their passion about games in any form that that takes in the industry. And I hope I can be part of the process of fostering more of that coming into the community.
Absolutely. What a good answer. You are the winner of Review, Fashion Crown.
Oh my gosh.
You are Miss Gay Board Games. So
yes. Miss Gay Board Games, finally.
You've done it. You're done. You can go home now. You're welcome. Thank you for coming. Thank you for coming to my show.
It was really enjoyable, and I'm glad we could talk about the variety of subjects that we did.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's been really fun for me. I think I've challenged myself because I am also a white man. I want to be, I hope I can be a good advocate for marginalized people. That's my goal. I want to try and do it the right way. So the best way I can think of doing it initially is just to give space for other people to share their stories. And if I can learn from it, I assume other people can too.
Yeah, and that's fantastic, and it's appreciated. And I know that by taking that path and having that in your heart, then that's going to continue to be what you put out in the world. So I appreciate it.
Absolutely. It's literally my pleasure. As a disclaimer, at the end here, I just want to remind everyone we're just a couple of queer folks. We do not speak for the entire LGBTQIA+ community, nor are we trying to. The best way to be an ally is just to keep learning, listening, and remember, we're all just trying to figure it out together. So if you're listening, know that you're loved and perfect just the way you are. And until next time, bye.
Bye.